there are crowds out there that are trying to figure out what's going to happen in the draft. And we've talked about so many quarterbacks leading up to the draft. Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock. But there's been this Daniel Jones thing that has been percolating. It's been percolating. And Chris, you've pushed back against it. But despite your best efforts, it continues to build and grow. And Charles Robinson of Yahoo reported last week that one team has Daniel Jones is the top quarterback on their board, and Gil Brandt, who's going to enter the Hall of Fame this year, and he's in the Cowboys Ring of Honor, he is comparing Daniel Jones to Peyton freaking Manning, of all people. Talk about high expectations for a guy entering the NFL. We talked about this an hour ago. We have more real estate at this point to really flesh it out. But, Chris, when you hear this about Daniel Jones, based upon what you've seen, based upon what you've studied, what are your thoughts on Daniel Jones and this Daniel Jones hype bubble that continues to grow?
No, it does. It continues to grow, certainly. First thing I would say is let's pump the brakes on the Peyton Manning conversation again. You know, Gil Brandt, I respect the hell out of him, and I know he's seen a lot of good players and all that. But, man, Peyton Manning was going to be the number one pick in the draft for 2 years in a row. He could have came out his junior year. He decided to stay. He ended up being it after his senior year when they lost the Orange Bowl to Nebraska. Peyton Manning, a big man, was a very good athlete. And again, you know, Peyton Manning, this gets disrespected a little bit about his game. A much better athlete than people realize. And when you go back and watch Peyton Manning highlights, watch him scramble and throw on the run. You know, look at some of the throws he made in the Super Bowl against the Saints on the run and some of the things like that. You know, okay. And then, you know, as far as the rest of his game, the arm and all of that, yeah, Peyton Manning didn't have an Aaron Rodgers arm or a Brett Favre or John Elway arm. But when Peyton Manning was in his prime of his career, it was one of the 5 best arms in football. I mean, especially deep down the field, seams down the middle, comebacks outside. Daniel Jones is a very good player. Don't get me wrong. I don't look at him as a first-round talent. But as I've said a few times over the last few weeks, I know teams have fallen in love with, you know, his brain, the way he processes information, the amount of workload he'll be able to handle as far as an offense and all of that. I get that. Where I worry about Daniel Jones is just pure physical ability. You know, there was just times in games where if defenses took away some of the David Cutcliffe slam dunk completions, I didn't think Daniel Jones was a good enough thrower or athlete to make some plays on his own to move the offense. And to me, that's what a first-round quarterback is. That's where I push back a little bit. But it only takes one team. And to me, when I hear Gil Brandt do this, I said this in the first hour, this to me is like old world NFL. And I really feel like the Giants and some of the media here in the New York area for the last week is trying to set up the Daniel Jones is going to be our number 6 pick, and they're trying to get the fans to digest it right now. And Gil Brandt, I think Ernie Accorsi, who used to be the GM, who drafted Eli Manning, who has a relationship with David Cutcliffe. And then I also think, okay, he hired David Gettleman, Accorsi. He was part of that. The Giants hired Accorsi to find the GM in Gettleman. So to me, when I connect the dots there, it just seems like that's what's happening. And I think right now I would say the Giants are going to pick Daniel Jones at number 6. That's what it looks like to me.
And here's what Gil Brandt said on SiriusXM NFL Radio last week about Daniel Jones. I love Dan Jones. I have to say this carefully. When you watch him and you go back 20 years and watch Peyton Manning, you are watching the same guy. He's athletic. He doesn't have a rocket for an arm, but neither did Peyton. He's very smart. And you've got Dave Gettleman, who is really feeling a lot of pressure here, really feeling a lot of heat, getting a lot of criticism. And I could see how he would be susceptible to the influences of an Ernie Accorsi, someone he can lean on in tough times when he is in the center of this storm in New York, when he's being accused of not having a plan, of not knowing what he's doing. Gettleman was pushing his own resume recently to push back against the critics, but you know this is a safe pick. And one of the things Gettleman said recently is that he wants someone with the mental makeup to survive in New York.
Sure.
And Chris, that's another little piece in this puzzle. Right? It's not about the physical ability. It's about having the brain power. It's about having the personality. It's about being able to deal with New York. But you still have to have the minimum physical ability or it's all going to fall apart. Hey, you've got a great attitude for being, 1 in 15 every year because you're not getting it done. And I think that's a concern that can come to fruition if he really can't play at the level he needs to.
Well, yes. Okay, and there's two things here. First off, this is the one thing that I want to say to all the public and people out there. Like, I feel like I've heard this a little lately, too, and this is like Greer and Jones. You know, and we talk about Will Greer, but Daniel Jones specifically here. I've had some people go, you know, his arm was a little bit better during the workout than I thought it was on film. And this is what I've even told my friends. You got to be wary of people like that. You know, Daniel Jones' real arm, Will Greer's real arm is what I saw in week 7, week 8 of college football. You know, right now they're fresh as hell. They're not practicing every day. So you get to see a guy who's had a week off from throwing, and then he comes out and throws 70 balls, and you go, oh, wow, that popped out of his hand. Okay, great. You know, but is it going to pop out of his hand that way in week 9 after it's the 10,000th football he's thrown this season? Because those are the things I worry about. And Daniel Jones, to me, is a high-effort thrower from that standpoint. Now, to your point about what New York is, I think you're very on. There's some truth to that, no doubt about it. And Daniel Jones, again, I don't like being the guy that talks negative about young 20-year-old something men, because I know he's good and he's working hard, and I hope he proves me wrong and he can call me an ass one day. I hope he does. I really do. But to the thing you talked about, you know,
I'll call you an ass today.
I know you will.
That?
But there is some Eli Manning, Phil Simms, you know, let's think of Kerry Collins. One thing I think of all those guys, it was just like this always. And they could handle the highs and lows of the New York media. And I do think in New York, that is something that you have to take into account maybe more than other cities.
And you know, you start invoking the Manning name when your starting quarterback is an aging Manning. There's just it's almost too obvious.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Again, it's, you know, I like to do this. I connect the dots, or connecting the tea leaves. Okay, when I look at all that.
No, you had it right the first time.
I know.
You don't connect tea leaves.
I wanted to deliberately mess it up. But when I take it all together, yes, just the way it seems like it's playing out in the media, things I hear, to me, it just seems like it's all a propaganda thing to sell New York on Daniel Jones, because the Giants are getting ready to take him at number 6.
At a minimum, a trial balloon to see how people do react.
Exactly
to it.
Right.
How whether people shout it down or whether people embrace it.
Yes.
And I think they are still stung a year and a half after the fact from the reaction to the benching of Eli Manning, that they were caught flat-footed when they walked into that they had no idea that people were going to be as upset as they were. And I think when something like that happens, it shakes you to your core when it comes to your self-awareness. Like, do we just have this wrong? Do we not understand our fan base? Do we not properly relate to how they feel? And I think that before they would make a move like this is part of what they would do. I'm not saying that this means they're doing it, but this is what we should expect if they are, that it's pointing that way. The trial balloon, the fan base reaction, do they seem okay with it? We've put it out there for a while now. The smoke signals are there. How are they reacting to it? And ultimately, you don't want them to lose their minds if Daniel Jones is the guy you get. We talked earlier about this. Before we take a break, let's revisit the idea of the psychology of when you would take Daniel Jones, when you have pick number 6 and pick number 17. Because you could, in theory, take somebody other than Daniel Jones or any other quarterback at 6 and hope that he's there at number 17, and you get the best of both worlds. And, obviously you run the risk of getting leapfrogged by somebody else who's fallen in love with Daniel Jones, but that would be one way for the Giants to proceed. You think maybe the safer thing is just go ahead and take him at 6 if he's your guy.
It would scare me to wait to 17 and hope that guy's there. Now, you did mention, okay, maybe if you're at 17 and the guy you want is still on the board at 10, 12, whatever it may be, then you make maybe another move. You trade 17 and maybe your second round pick to move up a few spots, whatever it may be, to get that guy. But yes, for me, again, I don't agree with Daniel Jones at number 6, but if the Giants really are sold that this is their guy, I wouldn't flirt with danger. You know, what are we going to do? Okay, pass him up, and then nobody's there at 17, and all of a sudden you might be having this whole same discussion next year about what the hell they're going to do at quarterback, and they might have to make a move in the first round to move up more, whatever it is. If you love your guy, take it to number 6, move on. It's quarterback. Hopefully you've done your homework and you're sold on, what the results have shown, and I think it should be as simple as that.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you. It's more fun when I don't. But if he is your guy, if you love him and you think he's going to be your guy for the next 15 years, then whether it's 6, 16, 1, wherever, you get him. And maybe you even consider, no, I don't think you consider trading. God, do you consider trading up? I mean, that's the other problem here, that enough people start talking about Daniel Jones and that he gets enough lift that somebody jumps you at 6, not at 17, but at 6.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have to worry about that at this point, but that's something that could happen too.
You're right. I don't think so either. I'm with you. I think everything you said, Mike, that it's just all about this was gauging fan interest. This is what we're thinking. They're trying to set up. And I think at 6, I don't think they're going to have to worry about anybody trading up in front of them to get Daniel Jones. I would be shocked if that was the case.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.